a bit like the story I was telling before we were chatting, and I was talking about meeting this hybrid being on the street tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and they are going to be, of course, partly robotic, partly AI, partly human, or partly something alien. What do you do when you meet them? Are you going to open their brain and try to dissect the interior of their cognitive apparatus?
Don't open things.
I don't think that's what you do, no? So, and yet that's how we think about objective functions.
Hello, and welcome back to Innovation Insights. Today we are at Nakanoshima Cross in Osaka. It is the cutting-edge medical research center of the city and the site of the Life Science Innovation Campus, soon to be opened by Nippon Life and CIC. We are delighted to be here and to be joined by the CEO of CrossLabs, Olaf Witkowski. Olaf, welcome to the series. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
So to start, I would like you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, what are you doing, and what does CrossLabs do?
Amazing. Well, thanks for having me. It's wonderful. Very nice environment here. What I do is I lead a few efforts in science, ethics, and technology of minds, which can seem pretty large. So we do research on artificial minds, but also more of the biological or human ones, and also the intersection of both. So I have launched a few ventures before, always in research and technology, over 3 continents so far. And yeah, I'm interested in many things, mostly things of communication and weird languages between minds.
So tell me a little bit, what is your journey? What took you from little Olaf to what you are right now? Being the CEO of CrossLabs and leading this research area, because basically you are leading all the research part of a larger kind of organization or a holding of organizations, right? So what was the journey? How did you end up here? And what were you doing in that way that took you here?
Well, I guess I started, I was born in a sort of multicultural, messy situation in which my mother is Vietnamese, my father is Polish. I was born in Brussels. We have a bunch of other languages. And this linguistics became my sort of passion with that. I love translating between people and between different kinds of ways to express yourselves, and the cultural ways to also interact is very massively different. I really enjoyed that, I think, and that brought me into first I was studying engineering, civil engineering, in Belgium. And I went into I tried out those early NLP engines. Those were not chatbots yet. They were very simple. And I was fascinated by that. And I started coding some myself. And yeah, I decided to go more into that. So I studied linguistics on top of engineering. And yeah, I was fascinated by something called quipus. I think I mentioned that to you before. Quipus are Inca objects. They are threads with knots in cotton, and the knots and the way the knots are made and the material, the colors have some kind of meaning. And we were trying to decipher. It's just a few hundred years old. It's difficult to find back the meaning. That was my master thesis. And yeah, so in this sort of a cryptography / linguistics, and we were using neural networks and GAs back in those days already. So I was that was my first entry point into this world of language. And after that, yeah, I traveled a little bit around and ended up looking for. So after the founding a few ventures, I ended up in Japan because there were nice researchers here I wanted to interact with. And somehow, yeah, I also spent some time after that in the US, where we founded a couple of centers for the study of things like artificial minds and so on. So long story short, I came back here and founded the CrossLabs that studies all the stuff I love and basically the nature of intelligence across diverse substrates.
All right, but let me ask you a little bit more about the journey, because you say I founded some startups. Like, yeah, no, I just founded some startups, and yeah, then I continue. Tell me a little bit more about that. What kind of startups? What does some mean, and what were you doing in each one of them to decide just to go to another one? What's a little bit
Right.
the part of it?
So in all the startups, I was always the research guy.
Right,
And
the chief technology officer kind
and
of.
there is a reason why I went into the academic track after that. It's because I really wanted to understand how to make new technology, and I grew up with Isaac Asimov kind of novels, and I wanted to that world to be here already, right? So
You
the
want to
same
bring
thing.
it faster here.
That's right. That's right. I was excited, and I think that's a word that defines me. It's a sort of describes my attitude towards this stuff. I'm excited.
So what were the technologies you were doing with the startups? Those ones you wanted to bring faster
Well,
here.
the first one was a search engine for microblogging.
Okay, yeah.
And it was the first days in which things like Facebook and Twitter were just on the verge of being created, and you needed to search for stuff. And I was already with this sort of baggage with NLP, natural language processing, not the neuro-linguistic programming, although I also enjoy this sort of stuff. And we use those techniques, neural nets and so on, in order to make those searches better.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I dived into those kind of techniques very early on. And then actually I moved to the various labs to push our tech. And yeah, I fell in love with doing research.
Okay.
And I decided to, there was an opportunity to spend a few months or a year here in Japan. And after 2 weeks, I loved it so much here. I felt so at home, not only with the culture, but also the attitude of people and the attitude towards science, that I decided to stay much longer. I knew it, I think, after 2 weeks. And I've been here for on and off for almost 17 years.
And in that process, in the on and off, you were in the US. Also, you mentioned Europe, but also the US. And I believe you did some research with NASA too.
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about it? What were you doing, and how do you end up doing the research with NASA?
Well, the gateway was I was very interested in the nature of life, the nature of the living state. What is different between this water that is not alive, but if you wait for long enough, maybe there is enough stuff in here that this becomes an agent and becomes intelligent and increasingly maybe even aware of its own existence. How does that happen? And that's really how I got into astrobiology kind of research.
Okay.
So finding out how systems that are complex and living and intelligent and eventually and even technological emerge from inert matter in the universe anywhere. So not only on Earth, but also SETI kind of research. And we, at that point, there was the creation of this new institute at Tokyo Tech, which now changed names. It was called the Earth Life Science Institute. And within it, we had a program to search for the emergence of intelligent systems anywhere. And so I also traveled to the US. I spent half of my time in Princeton at the Institute for Advanced Study, and half of my time here, still in Japan. And we created a couple of centers there, studying really the emergence of awareness, including synthetic kind of awareness. Lots of things. And that led to a few collaborations. We did some meetings also with the NASA folks in collaboration with other folks. We brought meetings to Japan for the first time in Tokyo. It was a follow-up to the famous meeting about astrobiology and the nature of life in the universe.
The part of the astrobiology and putting together different multidisciplinary approaches into looking into it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And redefining a new frame to capture things that we may be missing if we just define, for example, life and intelligence as a Darwinian chemistry process. We're going to miss out a lot of other ways in which matter can be intelligent and alive. So we decided to put that in, and we published even recently. So that's a collaboration with NASA, Caleb Shar from there. We co-authored a nice, I think, what will become a very nice gateway to new research in the nature of intelligence out there.
Right, and the research that you sent me with NASA was about looking for, I mean, part of the search for life is what are the conditions and where you should look into that. Right. And then there are different theories there that started with the habitat zone, and then we expanded into, oh, maybe you have other areas that is not the habitat zone that where you can find life, right? Because it doesn't have to, it's too Earth-centric just to think that it's only in the areas that the Earth develop life that you can develop life, and then maybe other conditions. We started looking at places where you have water and you have energy, even if it is under the ice, for instance, in Europa. Or so on, and we start thinking, okay, other life that happens in Earth, that it's in conditions that are extremely difficult for our human life, for instance, right?
Right.
But you were going a little bit farther because you were starting to look, okay, when you look at exoplanets and try to find which ones can have life, there are different things that in astronomy they look for, right? They look for the different signs of life, right? And one thing is to look for signs of life, even if bacteria. Other things is for intelligence life, and other things for civilization. So what is exactly what you were doing? Because you were looking for a different approach there, right?
That's right. I think a good approach is to stray away from the usual looking for certain chemicals or elements, which is usually what you go for, because we have a sort of, without really wanting it, we have preconceptions, we are prejudiced somehow about what life should look like.
Yeah.
It should look like the only data point that we have, us. Not only human life, but anything that we find around here on Earth. So that's really one data point of life that's sort of diversified. But there are so many other types of ways that you can extract free energy from the universe in order to create an agent that looks for more free energy, but also develops higher, more complex kinds of intelligence. The emergence of life, it turns out, over those years, we found out that it was not so difficult. It emerges very rapidly. It didn't take so long on Earth to emerge. But what is taking a long time and can really take very different ways to emerge is the emergence of intelligence, the complexification in different ways. And we find even on Earth different types of extremophiles and different types of living beings. But it's really, they can complexify in strongly different ways. And that's what we're looking at. That really depends on its context.
Yeah.
So you might be a very efficient living being here on Earth, especially with this society that we live in that supports us. But you would be really bad at surviving on Mars and much more on a different, less habitable planet. So all of that has to be contextual.
Yeah.
And what we took as an approach is the computation.
Yeah.
And you know how computation can be made in a certain way with GPUs. It's very different if you use quantum computing. You can have somehow a very much harder time to solve certain problems, but a much easier time solving other problems. And that's this dependency on the substrate that we study in that paper and some of the other research that we do at CrossLabs.
Okay, let's go into the research in CrossLabs, because all of this background, for me, what is interesting is you are looking at life and how to think about life in a different way. And you are looking at organic life, but other kinds of life. You are starting to change the definition of life, which is more in a dynamic way. And then we go into artificial intelligence and the potential of synthetic life that may emerge, right? So all of that is connected, and how do we get there? You are researching how to translate affect and empathy in the language of artificial intelligence. So tell me a little bit more about that, because I think that's an area that is extremely difficult. All the parts of the empathy with the robots or artificial intelligence being empathetic is the most difficult part. Artificial intelligence to behave like a human, but really feel like a human. And I think that is what an area of research that adds a lot of complexity. It's much more difficult, as you were saying, like getting into that. It's an exponential complexity versus the other problems of AI. So please tell me more about what are you working there, what are you looking into, and maybe what do you think is more promising?
Yeah, it's very difficult to sort of imagine life and intelligence outside of our own frame. We tend to personify, and it's because of those millennia or much longer of us becoming a society, and we learned to identify, characterize cognition in others as in other humans. And that's how we developed a very social anthropomorphic way of recognizing intelligence. And we're really good at it. So, props to us, but also we're very limited because of that. We're constrained. So we are trying at CrossLabs to get away from that kind of frame and reframe life as a diverse intelligence, neurodiverse in terms of humans, but also way more diverse, and including different forms of life, and also hybrid forms, like I was saying, intersecting different types of living beings. And in a way, humans are very technological, so maybe we are an example of that too, but I'm talking about more obvious cybernetic kind of forms of
What could be an example
living.
of this hybrid?
A nice piece of work, and we collaborate a little bit with that, is what Mike Levin and Josh Bongard have invented. So it's called xenobots. Now you have anthrobots as well, which are cells that are half stem cells from frogs at first, or human ones. In the case of human, I think it's throat stem cells. And you actually extract those and teach them with AI, making them really robots, but based on a biological substrate. And you find out that you can reprogram them immediately. Not only reprogram them, but reuse computational material they already have, in order to repurpose them to various tasks. For example, attacking cancerous tumors, also delivery of drugs, and various things like this. You can really get behaviors that did not exist before. And this is not a sort of genetic kind of way of studying life. It's really developmental and learning, like a bit like machine learning. And there are so many parallels that we can use directly, understanding the mathematics of both. So that's one concrete example, I guess. But really studying this sort of diversity of minds is something at the core of what we do. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go to the second area, and it's augmentation interfaces, and it's developed intelligence augmentation interfaces. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? What kind of interfaces are you thinking about, and what is the implication? Because augmentation is augmentation, I guess, of the human capacity that we have, and I guess it's both physical and intelligent wise, right? And scope wise.
So the way we want to frame augmentation is, as opposed to using AI or different technologies as autonomous tools. So you may use tools like AI and robots, like you use a calculator, which is some of my favorite examples. If you use a calculator, you input your calculation in there, and you look at the results. And you do that repeatedly, but really, can you say you have augmented your own intelligence? Not really, right? This has performed the calculation for you, so you have, if anything, offloaded your intelligence and your agency to this other kind of device. Now, if we compare the calculation of this kind of computer to an abacus or a soroban here in Japan, those devices really augment the way you understand mathematics. You calculate much faster, even having used that. And those kind of devices really, I think, this is the right type of augmentation. So instead of using Google Maps that would replace your way to orient yourself, we want to create a sort of Google Maps or ChatGPT that doesn't really offload your intelligence outside your body, but really increases your capacity
Okay,
to control reality.
I kind of relate to that because I have friends that say like Google Maps has made me completely dependent of it, and now I don't
Right.
even know how to
Right.
get around without it, and I'm losing that kind of ability. So
Right.
I think it goes that way. Can you give me an example of a tool that is not Google Maps that is really augmenting?
Right.
What would
So
be the difference?
it's quite difficult because I think we don't have very complex ones yet. That's why I'm
Okay.
giving this example of the abacus.
Okay.
There's the inactive torch. There's different ways of interfaces that you can create for existing tools that would augment your feeling of agency of it. And so we haven't. So the biggest project we're working on is to replace ChatGPT, something like this, language models, with a better interface that makes you feel like you are augmenting what you know.
So what are the things that make you feel that augmentation? Is like physically moving things, interacting? What
It
are
could
the...
be. It could be something. So it's easier if it's physical. Again, that's part of the interface, and our main interface is this and this.
Yeah.
And it feels amazing if you can do this. And I should add auditory. It's really rich as well. All of those senses, if you can plug into them a bit more, it feels much less like you are giving a mission to something and that something is going to do it. But it feels like you are doing it yourself. And something as a proxy that we study is the nature of agency and also the illusion of agency.
But so this is also well. Here I have to ask you because I've seen that for instance, for some of the autonomous cars, or they will give you like the wheel, but in reality you are not moving the wheel, and they are putting you there. But that's kind of an illusion of that agency.
That's right.
And I think what I'm hearing from you in the augmentation is something that you do that not only increases the agency, but also maintains those skills and abilities you are doing. So it's working both ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I mean, I'm just questioning because we all have seen the science fiction movies, right? And you have this interface that is with the holograms, and you are moving things, and that seems like you are kind of doing things in a three-spatial way, right? Instead of just maybe the keyboard or something like that.
Exactly. I think in this virtual reality, you could plan that sort of as a video game as well, in which you feel more or less agency over what is happening. And I think those examples are very helpful. In terms of extended minds, this is an old thread of research that in which you consider that technology is not really separate from you. So you create technology, and technology actually creates you back. So you have a sort of an active loop, we call that, with this technology. It means that if you manage to create something like an inactive AI, it should feel less like ChatGPT, in which you're doing, again, this sort of calculator kind of interaction with it. And it should feel more like I am just thinking, using this new skill that I have. I would compare it to a prosthetic. So when you plug on your prosthetic arm, it shouldn't feel like you are asking it to move and it's moving and it's very difficult. It should feel very natural, and you just should be able to grab things that you weren't able to grab without it. And I think that's the metaphor, but also it's direct because we are actually working on those robotics.
Right, I guess. I mean, it's
systems.
for the prosthetics. How does it feel like it's part of your body, and you don't feel like it's
That's right.
something that is in your body, and you should have it completely integrated in your neural system, right? So
Exactly. Yeah. And even more than that, you feel like it's part of you.
right.
And we actually do some weird and interesting studies about the use of meditation, for example, or hypnosis. That you know how living here in Japan, you go on the train and it can be a bit difficult because you're compressed in the morning. You know, it's an experience.
Compress is a
But,
very nice word. Yeah.
I think, yeah, you're a bit under stress. What you can do is you can sort of consider that everybody is your family or even part of you. And this is a type of meditation, kind of practice. And we studied those kind of practices and saw how to import that cognitively. And turns out there's a science of that. So we import this knowledge from psychology and cognitive science.
Yeah.
And with simple triggers, so we make people wear so wearable technologies, and they have feedback, visual, auditory, that puts them in a sort of state. I think it's wrong to call it a state, but to simplify that, they're put in this state of mind in which they are stretching their sense of embodiment to the external device as well. That can also help for healthcare. So we're using that for treating things like, or rather modulating things like fear of spiders or different things.
The phobias.
Phobias.
Traumas.
Even simply focus. Just suggestibility and your ability to perform certain tasks can be changed very drastically. And it's quite amazing. Just to be wearing this actually changes your way of perceiving reality. And we're using paradigms that existed for millennia, if anything, on meditation, hypnosis, and so on. And I think this is one way you can stretch also we talked about illusion of agency before. It doesn't have to be an illusion. It's just that you feel like this is part of you now. And I think it makes this connection with technology much more natural.
Totally.
So I think this is an important part of extending our minds to tech.
Yeah, and I think this is continues the augmented interfaces into how do you extend the mind. It's not only the interface by itself, but also the mind goes to it. Okay, the other area I had is universal mechanisms across diverse cognitive beings. And I guess this goes back to linguistics.
There are so many living beings and intelligences on Earth, and we are creating more with AI. There's a nice picture from Helen Toner. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter a few years ago. It was during the pandemic. I think she drew this sort of big monstrous demon thing. And just on top of it, you have a little smiley face. I don't know if you've seen that. It was very nicely drawn. And she says, yeah, this is really the nature of deep learning. And just on top, this could be your language model, right? Just on top, the cherry on top, like Diane Lequin would say, is reinforcement learning with human feedback. And that's how you see a very human-like anthropomorphized face of AI, but really, it's not thinking like a human being. We tend to over-attribute all of those features, a bit like it's called the Barnum 4 effect. It's attributing, like when you read a horoscope, you think it's about you. Well, we think the AI, the LLM is about us. It is not. So same thing, I think, for other beings. And there's a fun experiment we did with Waseda University, which is called the Nukabot, the Nukabot, referring to Nukadoko, so the pickles. So you put a bunch of, you put the veggies and a bunch of bacteria, mostly lactic acid bacteria and home bacteria from that. It turns out we are never alone. We are
really never alone.
We are a society of trillions of those beings. And we're not very conscious of being this society, right? We think we are the only captain on board, and that's it. We feel lonely. And the purpose was to stretch this sort of awareness. And by putting them in this little reactor, this little box, we throw in a bunch of sensors. And this is mostly the work of Dominic Chen at Waseda. We took those signals out, and we designed this translator based on embeddings that translate the signals, chemical, different concentrations, and so on, into language, human language that we can understand. So we talk to the bacteria. Now again, to avoid the horoscopic kind of effect, at first it was knowing a bit too much, right? Because it took the language of its interface. To avoid that, we reduced a little bit the bottleneck, and we made it play chess and Go and different games. And I think that was very interesting because it felt like playing chess with the bacteria. It felt really like I knew their personality and I felt their differences. And also you can communicate sort of back and forth and maybe co-design pickles or other fermentation products. I don't know, beer and nihonshu.
And how this will connect with the first one that we discussed, for instance, because you are talking this about finding a language to communicate with that process. And at the beginning, we talk about how do we can get this humanoids interface or these bodies that are a mix, like the cells, you can say, and there is a language there. So there, if you find this interface, and then it's an interface, it's a language that you find, and that feels more human.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Also, that allows you to extend your mind, and then you can do marvelous things like coding again, recoding your full body to recover from illness yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. There is so much that our cells do that we are not conscious of. And of course, those cells are forming themselves swarms and tissues are forming organs, and those organs are doing all of those, and they communicate, they have their own languages, a bit like if you're familiar with computer science kind of models of the internet, right? The OSI model, like the sort of levels of reality. Each level has their own, TCP over IP, right? Like their own languages, protocols. And as you go up, finally you have the sort of language of the mind that we are used to, and we think that's the only language that counts. Really, we want to translate between those layers, different kinds of intelligences. And one obvious application is in the medical one, where you want to be able to chat with your own cells and your own organs.
No, the same as the language learning models, the LLMs are giving you an interface that is easier because you command. At some point, as soon as you can chat with it, imagine the doctors that just can chat and say, hey, the interface is like a conversation.
Exactly.
Humanoid, and then they can address the issue much easier. It's like talking with a colleague.
Exactly. And how amazing would it be to take our work with the bacteria and upgrade that into conversing with other cells and organs, talking to our liver, our heart. This is research that Mike Levin has started, so we're collaborating with that. That's a group in Boston. And there are other people attempting different kinds of communications also in this field of artificial life, studying really cognition over other platforms and substrates in physics, which I find very unexplored, actually. So this is a very important part, exciting part of what we are trying to do.
Right. And I have the last one, which is about ethics and AI and hybrid beings, right? And that's the other part you are also doing research. Can you tell me a little bit about that part too?
So it's a part that I received a lot of backlash on because people feel very strongly about anything, well, ethics, but also consciousness. And I understand. So my first field was linguistics, and I felt like people had such a opinionated attitude because everybody has a language. Everybody also has a consciousness. All of those are very tricky to talk about. Now, in our latest papers, we sort of defended the conditions of possibility for ethics for other beings, diverse ones, artificial ones, and also hybrid ones. What are you? What are your rights if you are a robot, but you've been raised in human culture? Much not so differently from an LLM right now, something more embodied probably. What if you are hybrid and some of your cells have been replaced with robotic material? What if you are an augmented human in the sense that we talked about before? What are your rights? What is the responsibility and accountability you bear in different acts in society? So what should we do now, today, to prepare for the technology tomorrow that should be involving and respecting all forms of life, as diverse as they are. And in our research, we explore different situations, but also I think we have practical questions that we have to answer right now for the medical oriented research that we are already doing, for all of those technologies that we are creating linked.
Right, because we are creating something that is new, that is half of artificial, that may have its own consciousness
That's
or
right.
behavior.
That's
and
right.
as we're talking about agency, and they may have their own agency at some point.
That's right.
So how do you also control for that? Because AI, as we mentioned before, I mean, AI has a difference with other technologies. It has its own agency,
Right.
and at some point it will start behaving with its own agency,
Yeah.
right? And you cannot control that.
It's very difficult to unsee that once you've seen it. I'm not saying that AI right now, the AI we are interacting with, is alive or even closely as intelligent as we are. But we should understand what's the point. What are the focuses? Is it about the nature of the embodiment? Is the substrate very important? Because if it is, as soon as you mind upload, and my friend Ryota Kanai from Araya is working on this kind of mind upload, right, with a government-funded project.
Right, and you
This
store
is
yourself for the next body.
it's very difficult to tell. Should you have different rights if you are in a different platform in terms of physics?
Right.
And it doesn't feel like it. We are much more about the software, it feels like. But what are the constraints of that? Can we sort of map this territory? And that's this kind of research that we're trying to do. And a bit like the story I was telling before we were chatting, and I was talking about meeting this hybrid being on the street tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and they are going to be, of course, partly robotic, partly AI, partly human, or partly something alien. What do you do when you meet them? Are you going to open their brain and try to dissect the interior of their cognitive apparatus?
Don't open things.
I don't think that's what you do, no? So, and yet that's how we think about objective functions and the Asimov kind of kind of laws. I don't think that's the way you would interact with another human being, and probably it's not how you should be interacting with very diverse beings. So maybe we consider things like empathy, cooperation, and sort of also emotion. Something that we mentioned with the various projects, but one important part of one reason why the research on empathy of artificial and diverse system is important is that in the first place, it's so difficult to understand how we can transfer knowledge between two different minds, right? And when they have a different substrate, even two humans, how can I explain to you how much pain I'm in, how hungry I am, or thirsty, or what's the nature of this color I'm seeing, or this emotion that I'm feeling right now about this piece of art? This is very difficult already. How much more difficult is it going to become if our substrates are different? And that's exactly the kind of translation work we're trying to do with research that we do in sort of linguistics, really, but mathematics of representations in different models, different also types of beings.
Right.
And I think that's very crucial right now. And that will give us the answers, some of the answers, hopefully, to address the ethics questions.
Yeah, and it's going to be very needed as we evolve into having more of those beings evolving, having more agency.
Sooner than we think.
The hybrid ones. All right, so you are researching a lot of areas, and many of them have applications that are mind-blowing, but really exciting about. You are actually doing what you mentioned you wanted to do, which is bringing that science fiction sooner here. So just to wrap up on this part, what are you most excited about of all of these areas that you can think we can see it in 2 or 3 years, something practical happening?
It's difficult to view something too concrete and think that you are going to be correct. So I think we humans have a very poor track record of predicting the future, and we tend to be either too scared or too excited about very specific elements. So maybe in larger kind of frames, I think what I'm most excited about is about the diversification of the process of creation of knowledge that can be done with AI or with other types of hybrid kind of intelligences. So us stepping into this way more than we were already. So I'm using tools, this bottle as a tool, our clothes are tools, and I'm wearing these very important tools without which I wouldn't be reading your emotions right. All of those are something, but now we're stepping into something that is going to be much more agential, like you said, more autonomous.
Yeah.
So I think this new process of interacting with how we learn, how we acquire and augment knowledge, maybe in a very open-ended way, hopefully we'll be able to keep inventing forever. I would like to see that happening. I think that's the most exciting thing, how we co-create with AI.
And how we augment or invent
That's right.
a possibility of inventing more things and solving more problems, right?
That's right. How we co-invent, absolutely. And if innovation was a car, I would see no problem in taking turns at driving the car of innovation. I would let the AI drive. I come back, I drive. I don't have a problem with that. And I think I'm excited about this new frame of us co-driving to work and do great things for society.
Wonderful. I look forward to seeing this trip happening.
That's right.
So we usually end the interview by asking a word of wisdom from you for those on the audience that are interested in following a similar path, career path. What would be your advice for someone that is starting and wants to go into this kind of research, thinking like that will help them in preparing for that?
Oh, it's such a difficult question, but maybe go with the flow, something like that. There's a game I really like. It's the game of Go I mentioned before. And when you try to play Go and have a plan and stick to the plan, you often don't win because the game is so complex, and you ought to adapt to the complex dynamics. And I think it was the same for my life. I took interest and excitement as it came up, and I followed those. And it was okay to do that. And of course, some choices are going to be more right or more wrong than others. And accepting that and going with the flow, that's something that I see as a path for innovation. There is a nice book from Ken Stanley that was just translated. We helped doing that. To Japanese, and its greatness cannot be planned.
Yeah.
So I think also your life cannot be planned, and your life as a researcher and innovator cannot be planned either. So I think that's very central. So maybe that would be my final thing, my first advice that also comes to mind.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. For those of the audience that wants to follow you, what is the best way to follow you?
Well, maybe come and visit us here in Kyoto. We have a bunch of, we also do a lot of education if you're into learning about this kind of stuff. Definitely join us online.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Olaf. It was wonderful to have you here and sharing all these insights. And we hope to see you in the conference soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, see you there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.